All right. Welcome to the session, which will be an introduction to Cooperation Humboldt's food team. We, as we just mentioned, we will be recording and sharing this online. So if you prefer not to be part of the recording, you can turn off your camera. If anybody has any reservations or concerns, you can chat it into the box. So I'd like to open by acknowledging that here in Humboldt County, we are all living, working, playing, and gardening on the ancestral lands of the Wiyot, Hupa, Yurok, and/or Karuk people, and that we are occupying traditional Wiyot territory here in Eureka, where I'm calling from. Those of us who are descendants of white colonial settlers acknowledge that we have work to do to repair the damage that was done in the past and continues to happen, and set our intention to continually work to identify and dismantle colonial thinking and ways of being. The original inhabitants of this area actually are a deep inspiration for us and for this food team, because what we're trying to do is bring humans back into right relationship with the land and the rest of the natural world. Part of our commitment to reconciliation with the past and present is to move beyond just these acknowledgments and take tangible action. So at Cooperation Humboldt, we pay 1% of our gross income every year to the Wiyot tribe as part of the honor tax. And we'd like to encourage all of you to participate at a level that's meaningful to you. And we've included a link here to that information on our website. And if you're ever looking for it again, you can find it under Programs, Education, Wiyot Honor Tax. So we are a fairly small group, so we can take some time to check in, and we just ask that when you're not speaking, you mute yourself. And if you have something to ask or to add to the conversation, please type STACK into the chat window. That's our convention at Cooperation Humboldt for raising your hand and getting into the stack. So that puts you in order, and we'll call on you to the best of our ability in the order that you asked to speak. Kind of quick overview of the agenda. We're just doing a welcome and introductions. We're going to briefly cover what the purpose of the meeting is. David's going to do an overview of Cooperation Humboldt as an organization and what we call Cooperation Humboldt 2.0. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the food team specifically, its vision, goals, strategies, and tactics, which leads right into current projects and potential future projects. Then we're going to make sure you all know exactly how you can get involved and do a short closing. So we do have time to do some really quick introductions. So if people want to go around and just share your name and whether you have any existing connection with Cooperation Humboldt and your preferred pronouns if you would like. And I will start. My name is Tamara McFarland, and I'm a co-founder and board member of Cooperation Humboldt, and I operate the food team. And I will pass to Kate.
And I'm Kate Lancaster, and my connection with Cooperation Humboldt is I'm supporting the team on a worker-owned cooperative that's being explored right now, and also a part of the study group, 12A study group. And my preferred pronouns are she, her.
Clover, would you like to go next?
Oh, yes. My name is Clover Strickling. My pronouns are she, her. I'm relatively new to Cooperation Humboldt. However, I've been a participant of the study group, and I look forward to being more involved.
Jason, would you like to go next?
Hi, my name's Jason Slider. I prefer him, he, and I have volunteered with different projects within Humboldt County Cooperation Humboldt, including the food pantries and the mini gardens. And I'm here to find out what I could do to help out and volunteer through the food team.
Great. Kenzie, can you check in?
I'm Kenzie Mullen, and I'm I'm in the study group, I think 12B, and I'm here to find out more. Thank you.
Welcome. Andrew, you want to go next?
Hi there, folks. I'm Andrew Barnett. I'm a past president of the Garberville Rotary Club, and I'm here to explore Cooperation Humboldt's food program with the goal of teaming up Rotary clubs in our area to further food security for our region. I'm carrying the information I gathered today and through other contacts with these goals in mind to a regional environmental sustainability group called SRAG, which is now based, well, it's an international Rotary study action group, and we have a district-wide meetings regularly, and the goal is to come up with strategies for the North Coast to promote environmental sustainability. And I'm looking for partnerships and ways that Rotary can contribute to these goals.
Great, thanks. Alex?
Hi, my name is Alex Montes de Oca. I found Cooperation Humboldt through various means, first through Humboldt Food Not Lawns, and then also through protests addressing police brutality, and also through volunteering for some mini garden installs. So yeah, excited about getting involved in more ways to help with reparations. Use he, him, or they, them pronouns. Thank you.
Welcome. Pat, would you like to go next?
Sure. Pat Bitton, she, her. I'm with Locally Delicious, so I'm here mainly to see how I can help with the transition to the local food guide.
Great, and we will get into that a little later. I think the only person left to check in is Maggie. Welcome, Maggie.
Hi. I know everybody. I'm Maggie Gaynor, active in Zero Waste Humboldt. We'll be planning probably for January a food waste related event, and interested in any cooperation.
Cool. Is there anybody that I missed having check in? I think I got everybody. All right. I also made a note here that if any of you are not on our mailing list yet, if you're not receiving approximately weekly emails from Cooperation Humboldt, if you could type your first and last name, your email address, and your phone number into the chat box, we will add you to our list. Or you can also sign up through our website. So we try to be very intentional about our meeting culture at Cooperation Humboldt. So I like to be really clear on what the purposes of a meeting are before we even begin, before I plan the meeting, before we start the meeting. And so this is what I came up with for today. We would like to have time to introduce the fundamentals of Cooperation Humboldt to you, to build a shared understanding and commitment to the goals, strategies, and tactics of the food team, and to empower your participation at upcoming work days and ongoing volunteer opportunities, and to hopefully cultivate new leadership on the food team for anyone who's interested in that level of participation. Any questions or clarification on the purpose of the meeting? Are you all in the right place? All right. I'm going to hand it over to David for Cooperation Humboldt overview. David, are you able to share your screen?
David, you're muted. David, you're still muted.
So now I am not muted and I'll go back. Thank you so much for the help, Kate. I often say we always, part of our culture at Cooperation Humboldt is that we expect mistakes and we just integrate them and roll right through them. So you can either imagine that I messed up and not treated it, or that I intentionally did that just so that we could actually have the moment of being able to have that. And I will confess that it was totally accidental. But so what you're looking at now is the introductory brochure of Cooperation Humboldt. And our entire mission is to build a solidarity economy on California's North Coast. And the idea of a solidarity economy it is actually steeped in a real clear analysis. So our mission is to create a solidarity economy, empowering residents to meet their collective needs in harmony with nature without exploiting anyone. And if you look to your right, you'll see us try to visualize the current world is based on heteropatriarchy, imperialism, I don't know what just happened. Imperialism, white supremacy, and capitalism. And for us, what we're trying to do is to move toward inclusive gender equity, a decolonized land, an explicitly anti-racist worldview, and a solidarity economy as opposed to a capitalist one. This is important to us. Because we think that this current system is fundamentally power over dominator worldview, and we are moving towards a power with collaborative worldview. We are also clear about what we believe at Cooperation Humboldt. And we believe that our current institutions are fundamentally racist, sexist, and class oppressive. That this is a result of social, political, and economic systems that incentivize domination and exploitation of women, people of color, poor, homeless, disabled, queer, undocumented, and indigenous people. We believe capitalism is an economic system based upon exploitation and oppression, and that it will literally destroy the planet if we do not shift to a cooperative and sustainable economic system. We believe it is possible to create entirely new institutions that incentivize cooperation, love, compassion, and kindness. This new system will be capable of supporting every person with a good quality of life. We believe in lifting up and supporting groups that are doing grassroots organizing with working class people and people of color, groups who are training organizers and building long-term strategies to resist fascism and to create new models for a joyous and collaborative new future. And finally, we believe we can work with you or your organization, even if you do not believe these things. But we are committed to being clear and explicit about who we are and what we believe. The next part of our overview is our theory of change. And first, a note. A theory is a foundational set of beliefs about how the world works. It's a set of interrelated concepts, ideas, and definitions that both explain and predict events and situations. Everybody actually has a theory, but for many of us, that theory is unnamed or unclear. Remember, theory without action is mere contemplation, but action without theory is just doing stuff. So at Cooperation Humboldt, we are intentional about developing a shared theory, not only of how the world currently operates, but a theory of and a commitment to building concrete projects to create a new world. So our basic theory is to resist all forms of exploitation and oppression, whether it comes from race, gender, class, sexual orientation, or any other worldview. Next, we commit ourselves to building new systems that will actually meet our needs. Sometimes these are called non-reformist reforms. In other words, we don't have to wait until we completely transform society to actually do and create the new system that we want, sometimes known as building the new society within the shell of the old. Next, we believe that we must empower ourselves and others to learn the skills to succeed, because our current society has not taught us to collaborate. Our current society has taught us to compete. We haven't learned genuine democratic skills and decision-making authority. We also inspire others to join us in creating that new society. The next part of the overview and big picture of Cooperation Humboldt is to talk about the principles of a solidarity economy. Because a solidarity economy is a system in which everyone has their needs met in a way that does not exploit or harm anyone or the environment. It takes an approach to our economy that can better serve people and the planet rather than private profits and blind growth. In essence, it can be delineated from a capitalist system, and capitalism is actually quite easy to define. It is at its root a system that is based on the private ownership of the means of production, that goods and services are produced as commodities to be sold at a profit. So profit maximization is number 3. Number 4, that the market allocates all of these things. And number 5, that labor is treated as a commodity the same way as other natural goods are treated as commodities. So wage labor is the 5th characteristic, which distinguishes the solidarity economy that is fundamentally based on pluralism. The notion that this is not a fixed blueprint that acknowledges that there are multiple paths to the same goal of a just and sustainable world. Number 2, a commitment to solidarity, grounded in collective practices of cooperation, mutualism, sharing, reciprocity, altruism, love, caring, and gifting. The 3rd principle is a commitment to equity to oppose all forms of oppression, imperialism and colonization, racial, ethnic, religious, gender-based patriarchy, and cultural discriminations. Number 4, a commitment to sustainability, drawing heavily upon indigenous perspectives of living in harmony with nature and each other. A solidarity economy upholds the principles of sustainability and regeneration. And lastly, a commitment to participatory democracy, the understanding that we will enable decision-making and action to be based as local as possible, thereby providing ordinary people the opportunity to directly participate in making the decisions that affect their lives in our communities. The last big picture is, wait a minute, here we go. The nitty-gritty, the program, the foundational belief, and the specific projects. I'm going to do these very quickly. We have an entire program area called Art and Culture, based upon the idea of that systemic culture shift manifests itself through artistic expression, and that's why we engage with artists and other culture workers who share our vision of a cooperative society. And to the right, you can see the very specific projects. So think of it this way. We have a program area based on a foundational belief, and those beliefs shape every one of our concrete projects. I won't go through them all, but you can go back at your leisure and look at those. We also have a care and wellness program area, premised on the foundational belief that health, wellness, and care are fundamental human rights. So we create education, services, and community partnerships to remove the profit motive from healthcare. The 3rd program area is economic democracy, a belief that ordinary people must control the fundamental decisions about how our society is structured, including economics. Kate and I, who is a retired professor at HSU, often joke that actually it's any ordinary person is capable of understanding economics, and we dedicate ourselves to operating in that way. The 4th program area is education. Based on the fundamental belief that everyone has the right to education, everyone is a teacher, everyone is a student or a learner, and that collective self-education is critical to success as organizers and social change agents. The penultimate program area is housing, based on the fundamental belief that access to safe, secure, and affordable housing is a fundamental human right. No one should ever be without housing. All of our projects are in housing are premised on that. And I'll just say a word that our food program area is fundamentally grounded on the belief that access to nutritious, culturally appropriate food is a fundamental human right that should never be dependent on wealth or income. So that is the big picture overview. There's obviously a lot of deep dive that we can do, but I want to conclude the overview there and to really underscore that the Cooperation Humboldt 2.0 is how we make and implement decisions. We have embraced sociocracy, holacracy. These are new ways of organizing. Oh, thank you so much. Look at that. Thank you. So it's premised upon distributed leadership, consensus decision making, but not that everybody in all of Cooperation Humboldt has to be on that consensus. But if you are on a work cluster or on a work team, that within that team or that pod is where consensus happens. We have a path to participation and genuine leadership through our study groups, and that each of those teams have specific roles. You can be an anchor and really take ownership. You can say, I don't really want to do all that planning and all that strategy work and all that. I just want to show up and plant gardens. You are welcome, and we will honor that and not waste your time and give you the opportunity to be a participant. Or perhaps you are skilled at some aspect that we need. Maggie Gaynor, I'll lift you up. You are clearly the go-to person for zero waste in Humboldt County. We would welcome you as an advisor at Cooperation Humboldt to help integrate zero waste culture practices within Cooperation Humboldt. So you need not be either an anchor or a participant to be an advisor. Last thing I'll say is if you look at the circle, what you see is not a pyramid, but a series of concentric circles. But the very center circle, the leadership circle, is actually two component parts. Yes, we have a typical traditional board of directors who are tasked with the fiduciary responsibility of meeting the guidelines of the Internal Revenue Service and raising money and making sure that we're following the law in all the ways, blah, blah, blah. But the real gem is the core team, and to be on the core team puts you in a leadership position at Cooperation Humboldt. And the path to leadership on the core team, again, are those study groups. If any of you are interested, many of you have been through a study group. Some of you are in a study group now. Remember that this is an invitation to the path to leadership, to get into the leadership circle. But if you don't want to do that, you can still be an active participant. I'll name it. We have 5 members of the board of directors. We currently have about 30 people on the core team. We have another, get this, y'all, 52 people in study groups right now. So we continue to grow. We have probably about 200 active participants. These are people who are actively involved with us, but are not currently on the core team. We have about 2,500 supporters throughout Humboldt County. And we have another 500 to 700 folks who are prospects but are not yet on the Cooperation Humboldt email list. So if you're not on the Cooperation Humboldt email list, you are still, in our language, a prospect. So before I turn it over to Tamara, I want to again encourage you, if you are not getting a weekly email from us, please share your name, your email address, and your telephone number in the chat, and we will add you to that list. And before I pass it, well, Tamara, I'll just pass it to you to facilitate any follow-up questions or so forth. But I think I came in within my timeline.
Thank you. So let's open it up just for a moment. Is there anybody who has questions or feedback about what David has presented? And you can type stack into the chat to get on the stack to speak. All right, I guess we will just move right on then. You were very thorough, David. So my addition to the Cooperation Humboldt 2.0 piece that you just did is just that specifically on the food team, we're really trying to move more toward a vision of a more collectively operated team with more people sharing responsibility and making decisions. And so you all are invited into that, and it is an opportunity to deepen your connection with Cooperation Humboldt and maybe learn some new skills. So David already mentioned this, but it's really important that we always center the vision of this team. And the vision for this team is that access to nutritious and culturally appropriate food is a basic human right and should be provided to everyone regardless of wealth or income, and that no one should ever go hungry. So this is a little visual of how goals, strategies, and tactics are related. So we try to be very intentional about this in all of our program areas, and we have an understanding that our goal is a broad primary outcome. So what I just said about the vision of creating a society where food is treated as a fundamental human right could be an example of a goal. Your strategies are the approach you take to achieve the goal, and the tactics are the tools you use in pursuing the strategies and the goals. So another way of stating the goal of our food team is that we are aiming to restore Humboldt County to the regenerative, life-sustaining food forest and ecological haven that it once was prior to settler colonial contact. The strategies that we've identified as a team to help us achieve the goal include empowering residents with the resources and skills they need to grow more food, creating structures for resource sharing, shifting community consciousness around food from a commodity to a fundamental human right, and cultivating strong partnerships with others working for food sovereignty. The tactics that we are currently employing to support the goals and the strategies are our little free pantries, lawn conversions, mini gardens, community fruit trees, educational offerings, and soon, the local food guide. So what we've just described about how we get to the tactics also are what actually kind of becomes the team's projects. So that list that I just gave are the current projects for the food team. And we're going to spend a few minutes talking about each one. So the first is the Little Free Pantries, and they're a grassroots crowdsourced solution to immediate local need. They help people who want to give, and they help people who need to take things, and they're for everybody, neighbors helping neighbors, and they're really helping to create community. We've installed about a dozen so far, and we have a dozen more just about ready to put up. The second round is going to be kind of intentionally trying to expand beyond Eureka and getting a few into Arcata and McKinleyville. We do have some, fairly immediate concrete needs around this project where we would really welcome volunteer help. One is help delivering the pantries that we have ready to go out to people. Another is we have several $100s available for purchasing supplies to fill the pantries. If somebody was interested in doing the shopping for supplies and then taking, boxes of materials to all the locations where pantries currently are, that would be a job that we would love some help with. And ultimately, we're actually looking for somebody to kind of be what we call at Cooperation Humboldt, the bottom liner of this project, kind of the go-to person who's doing the coordinating and the promotion and the ongoing care of the pantries and supporting the pantry stewards. The next of our projects is lawn conversions. So we've helped to convert about 20 front lawns into gardens in the area. And that's all about the vision that we have to really kind of collectively rethink the purpose of our spaces, even small spaces like front yards. And we really believe that so many people, you default to a front lawn, but we encourage people to actually rethink what the purpose of their front yard could be. If people could convert more of their grass into gardens like this one, not only can you provide food for your family, but it's also a connection point, community building with your neighbors. It helps with emergency disaster preparedness, provides habitat for wildlife. It usually results in fewer chemicals and emissions in the soil and in the air than a traditional lawn. And then, of course, connection with nature and fresh air and exercise. So this was kind of our most active and visible volunteer project up until the pandemic. And what we would do is we would bring a team of like 10 people for maybe 3 or 4 hours to a location, and we would just get it done in one day. We would sheet mulch, and we would put down wood chips, and we would put beds in and plant plants. It was super fun. The volunteers all had a really good time doing it. And then when COVID hit, we didn't want to keep getting 10 people at a time together. And it was also really kind of a take stock moment to think about whether the actions that we were taking as a team were really getting the resources to the people who perhaps needed them the very most in that situation. And we decided that we would shift our energy really completely for the season into our mini gardens in an effort to get food to the people who need it the most and to a wider number of people. So since we started doing this project in April, our volunteers have installed over 240 free mini gardens like the one you see in the picture to low-income residents of Humboldt County. People can apply to receive them online, and then we show up with the planter and the soil and the plants and everything they need, and we install it for them, and we leave them with information and resources to care for it. And then we do periodic follow-up to make sure that they're having success with it. So that's been a really fun and very rewarding project that we've been focusing on for the last few months. And we're really proud of the outcome. It's kind of getting towards the end of the planting season now, so it might be kind of winding down a little bit, but we do have a couple dozen people who have applied for them who haven't received them yet. So if folks are interested in still going out and doing a few, there is a lot we can still plant in the fall for a while still. Not too long, but a little while. Another one of our projects for the food team is our free community fruit trees. We've planted over the last 2 years about 90 free fruit trees, and folks can again apply to receive one. It needs to be in a publicly accessible spot, so most of them are in like front yards along a sidewalk, but there's also some like at schools and churches and places like that. And they sign an agreement that they will take care of the tree, and that when the tree starts to fruit, we're going to come back and put signage on the tree so everybody knows that the intent is for it to be shared and anybody can take what they like. It was really wonderful. I went to the Abuelita's community garden the other day, and I saw the peach tree that was planted just this year, I mean, probably around February, and they're taking such good care of it. It looks like a 5-year-old tree. It's like 6 feet tall, and it's just got this huge amount of leaves and beautiful. That was fun to see. So we also have educational offerings around food. Last summer, we did what we were hoping would be a first annual edible garden tour. We didn't do it this year because of COVID, but hopefully we'll be able to again. It was really wonderful. We had, you know, one 5 or 6 hour period on a Sunday where people could sign up and get to go on self-guided tours of like 8 different really wonderful food gardens, residential food gardens, to inspire them for what can be done even on a city-sized lot. We have done some videos and webinars. I'm just getting ready to do one on home composting with Sabrina. I don't think I even told you that, David, yet, but I'm excited about that. And we've been working on, you know, some simple publications to help support new gardeners. Like I have, you know, a spring and a fall planting chart with scannable QR codes for people for the mini gardens to, you know, help people learn about what they can plant when in this climate. And finally, our kind of most recent thing that we've taken on is that we are going to be publishing the local food guide this year. So for anyone who's not familiar with that publication, it's about a 100-page magazine and directory that the local group, Locally Delicious, has done for the last 4 years.
Delicious.
It's 4 years.
4 years. 17 through 20 is 4. Thank you for that correction. And it's been a really completely invaluable part of our community. and like everywhere we go, we have been passing them out, and they are incredibly popular. We see them in lots of places, and we are honored that for 2021, Cooperation Humboldt will be both taking over and publishing our first version. Again, we expect to have it ready in March of 2021. So we know that those are huge sort of shoes to fill, boots to fill, but that's part of what we'll actually be doing. And Tamara, are you back? Is that why things changed? Okay.
Sorry
I just
about that.
did the food guide.
All right, thank you. So I also wanted to mention before we move on from our projects, just how deep our commitment is to building true collaborative relationships with other individuals and organizations in the area that are doing work around food sovereignty. And this is a list of a few of the groups that we've worked with in the past and some that we're currently in the process of creating strong partnerships with. The North Coast Community Garden Collaborative, Locally Delicious, the Humboldt Permaculture Guild, Humboldt Food Policy Council, the Wiyot Tribe, the Lolita Community Resource Center, United Indian Health Services and the Potawatomi Garden, Two Feathers Native American Services, Cumbre Humboldt, which is an organization serving low-income Latinx residents in the Valley West area of Arcata, Open Door, and the Eureka High Environmental, it's like a Students Environmental Action Club, I think is what that stands for. I'm sure there's some I've forgotten. I just jotted those down quickly. So does anybody have any questions about the current projects that we have outlined here today?
Yes, I do.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'd like to see if there's a central area where we could produce some daily or weekly like food supplies for people who don't have access to safe food, either monetarily or physically, being able to get to them, and what we could do to coordinate a distribution program.
Sure. So the next thing we were going to move into is kind of talking about potential future projects. But I just want to make sure that nobody has questions about what I've already presented as like the existing projects before we move on to that.
I just had a question about, are there activities in this regard, food program, food project in Southern Humboldt?
Not yet, but we would love to connect with, you know, a few people. If we could get kind of a core group of people who reside there and wanted to connect in with us, we would be thrilled to make that expansion. And I'm also kind of currently working on making connections in Eastern Humboldt as well. It's definitely, you know, it's been pretty Eureka, Arcata, McKinleyville centric because that's where the organization started and we're only a few years old. But Humboldt is in the name, and our intent and our aspiration is to serve the entire region. So absolutely, and it'll just take, you know, some people in those areas who want to connect and, you know, work with our resources and within what we're doing. We'd love to do that. Did you have anything to say about that, David?
Yes, well, everything that Tamara said, Andrew, and just to let you know, when you mentioned the Rotary Club, I did send you a private chat to share that I have given a presentation to the Fortuna Rotary Club, and I would be eager to connect both on Rotary, but also a SOHUM connection and us providing resources, support, and whether it's through Cooperation Humboldt, or we laughingly say we copy left everything that we do. So if you see anything that you like and you just want to take it on, take it on. But if you also want to have a more focused, intentional relationship, which is our preference, we would be eager to explore what that would look like.
Is there like a online operations manual for the mini garden project?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of information on there. If you go to the food team program area and go to mini gardens, there's a pretty well laid out kind of step-by-step thing that I've written, but I would be happy to connect with you more about that if you need more detail than what's there.
Great. And I'll be sending you and David a link to a meeting that's happening on Monday, I think it is. It's a regional meeting for Rotary clubs to strategize these kind of things. You need to
Okay.
check out ESRAG, ESRAG. It's a Rotary International Project for Environment and Sustainability. So.
This is Maggie. I just want to say how exciting all the food related work is and all the individuals involved in the mini gardens and everything. I just, you know, major applause. I'm so pleased to see it all happening. Then my question is, are you working closely with Food for People?
I'll jump in there with an enthusiastic yes, and to say that during the initial onslaught of the shelter in place, it just really lift up that Food for People was like they were superstars, and we collaborated with them. And in the spirit of how we roll, Maggie, we recognized Food for People is the go-to source for food for low income and food insecure people. So we simply said, how can we help? What do you need from us? And what we ended up doing was a couple of things. One, they needed extra bodies and hands to do a couple of food distribution points at Bayshore Mall. We stepped up and frankly organized the entire thing for them. They had the material and the resources, but frankly, we had the volunteers that we could put out on a dime. In addition to that, we worked with them on a COVID coalition response to ensure that houseless people got more, even more access than they had traditionally and typically been getting because COVID was hitting them so clearly and hard. So the short answer is yes, we have a very good relationship with Food for People, and we are always open to developing further and deeper such relationships.
All right. So moving on to potential future projects and Jason's question, we are definitely, you know, open to adding things to the food team. And what that would take at this point is kind of people who are passionate about it coming and engaging at the meetings and going through a study group cohort to become leaders of the organization and being somebody to take that on. We're all about like enabling people, empowering people to bring their visions for what they think a more cooperative and just society should look like. What we're not looking for is for people to come and tell us what we need to do on the food team, as in like, you guys need to do this, because we're already doing a lot on a very, very tiny budget. So it's more of a model of like, bring your enthusiasm and your ideas and your ability to do that work, and we will help support you and connect you with other volunteers who are interested. Did I say that okay, David?
I think you said it perfectly, and I'll also take this opportunity to first underscore, Jason, you're in our head, because literally that conversation and that desire is something that we've been mulling around, but frankly, we don't have enough sweat equity and resources to do it. So I know you personally, Jason, and think you're a superstar. And honestly, if that's something that you are like, you know what, I, Jason, could see myself leading such a thing, we would love to sort of fast track that to make it happen. The second thing that I will underscore is that we are already in a shift because of what we saw both with COVID and then the Floyd rebellion and then the fire evacuees that we helped with. The real need so we had disaster response, we already had community resilience hardwired in everything that we do. We're really going to be intentional about a program area called From Disaster Response to Community Resilience. And that intersection for the kind of project that you just explored, Jason, or put out there would be a perfect fit for that, because all of our, I hope you can see that both our program areas and our projects are actually an interconnected effort to transform society. So that's the other thing that I would add to that. Pass.
Jason, do you have did that help? Do you have anything more you wanted to say about that? Or does anybody else have things that they're excited about that they think would be a good fit that they might have juice to work on through the team?
That would be great because to that point, yeah, income inequality, and then people who are refugees from joblessness, COVID, disability, other situation, yeah, food's going to be important for them and just having access to that. So what we could do to, yeah, spearhead that or cooperate with organizations that provide that would be great. See what we could do going forward. So I'd like to connect with you guys separately and see what we could do.
Great.
Fantastic. And I will actually add this point, in the spirit of genuine cooperation and not getting involved in organizational what have you, we've just learned that the city of Eureka are going to be offering very small mini grants for community resilience, $500 a piece. And we're working with the city of Eureka staff and city council person Leslie Castellano, and Cooperation Humboldt is going to offer a open to the public training on how to apply so that other groups, organizations, or even individuals can start doing community resilience. So just want to let folks know that that is actually coming.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to move things along. So we want to make sure that you definitely do have a good, clear understanding of how you can get involved with the team if you are so inspired, and we hope you are. We have monthly meetings for the whole team on the 4th Tuesday of each month at 6 o'clock on Zoom, which makes our next meeting on October 27th. You can find links to those meetings on our website or under events on our Facebook page. And in addition, we're working on creating a group of anchors for the food team. And ideally, those anchors would have a weekly stand-up meeting, which is what we call our short check-in meetings. It would be probably 30 minutes by phone or Zoom. And the purpose of those meetings is just to help anybody who needs help, getting to the next step on the things that they're working on. It's a chance to let each other know if we have any blocks, if we need any help on anything, and keep the work moving. Our main communication between meetings is over Slack, which is a website or an app that work groups use to communicate on projects. I generally will also send out things like meeting announcements through a Google group that's for the food team specifically. I'm hoping we can eventually phase that out and move just to Slack, but for anybody who put your name and email address in the chat, I will also send you an invitation to our Slack channel, and I will add you to the Google group. Don't worry, you won't get bombarded with messages. I really only use it to announce meetings, so it's a very low volume thing. So we're fairly ahead of schedule here, but we're already up to our closing. So we can take some more time to chat, but why don't we go ahead and just take a minute to go around, and if anybody has any thoughts they'd like to share about how was the meeting for you and whether your understanding of the team has shifted or not based on what you heard here today, and perhaps whether you envision yourself engaging any differently with the team, whether you have some idea of a role you might be interested in taking on. And it's also a time to ask questions if there's anything about the team you're unclear about. So you can just chime in with any of this as you feel ready to.
I had a question. Do you have parallel groups or allies up and down the North Coast beyond the that that are operating like in other areas like Santa Rosa or Sonoma County or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there are all kinds of groups doing this type of work, and they're all over. But I know in Sonoma, specifically Sonoma County, the one that comes to mind immediately for me is called Daily Acts.
It's called what?
Daily Acts, ACTS.
Daily Acts.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of work like this there. I'm sure there are others as well. But yeah, I mean, there are cooperation groups all over the place. They don't all have that in the title, but some do. They're, permaculture groups. Those are the kinds of things I'd be looking for in any region. And I imagine David might have more he's the more connected outside of the region person in the movement, so maybe he has more to say on that.
Yes, I do. And thank you, Andrew, for the question, and Tamara for the good response. I'll also lift up a grouping that's mostly, honestly, at this point, Bay Area, but all of the San Francisco Bay area, called the NorCal Resilience Network. I've dropped the URL into the stack. But Cooperation Humboldt is the furthest northern reach of that network. There are also multiple groups that are doing very explicit solidarity economy work all the way, like it's happening all over the country, but there is a nascent network of us that are really targeting ecotopia, basically, you know, the Bay Area up to Vancouver, or if instead Parable of the Sower, more to your liking. Either way, the reality is that bioregion, and Andrew, what we're looking at doing is creating actual economic supply chains to actually say, how are we going to meet our needs as the climate crisis worsens, as frankly, as things collapse? How are we going to produce and distribute the things that we need to not just survive, but to thrive? So it's early, but it's happening. And I want to point out, Tamara, that Alex is on the stack.
All right, go ahead, Alex.
Hey, thanks. Tamara, you mentioned that you're recording this presentation. I was wondering if there's like maybe a way we could share, or if there's recording will be available to show other
Yes.
people who might be interested.
I'll be posting it on our Facebook page and on our website.
Awesome, thanks, that's all.
David, I was really pleased to hear that network that's growing. And I would encourage you to check out SRAG, ESRAG, and also Project Drawdown, which is a part of SRAG. And it's
so I know Project Drawdown, but would you drop into the chat, because I'm worried I may not get it exactly right, but that URL that you described sounds very important.
Yeah, it's I don't know about the URL, but it's ESRAG. If you do that, you'll find it.
Environmental sustain. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
and like
great.
I said, it's the largest Rotary Action Group, and over the last 2 years, their activities have inspired Rotary International to declare the environment and sustainability one of our 7 areas of focus. So it's a major movement, and the goal for SRAG is to establish strategies and tactics for the various regions and districts. And my focus, of course, is the District 4130 that goes from Marin to the Oregon border. And there's 40 Rotary clubs in that district, and we're just now forming our strategy and tactics for our region along those lines. And I'm really glad to see what you guys are doing and how we can partner up with people like Food for People and the Abundant Earth Foundation and all kinds of other groups that are working on these same things. So you'll be hearing from us.
All right, we have Kate and then Linda on the stack. Kate?
Yes, could one of you speak to the relationship, I guess, with Cooperation Humboldt and Transition Town?
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I feel sheepish because that really does land on me again, and mostly because I have the honor of serving on the National Transition US Collaborative Design Council. So I'm pretty steeped in transition work. And for those of you who don't know, the Transition Town movement actually began in England. Rob Hopkins, a really early thinker who predicted and said, look, between peak oil, the climate crisis, and the coming collapse, we have to transition now to new ways of being and new modes of production and distribution, and really take sustainability very seriously without waiting on government to act. And so the US version of that is called Transition US. And I'm honored to say that Cooperation Humboldt is the Humboldt Area Transition Initiative. So yet another network are the Transition Towns and local initiatives. And the NorCal Resilience Network is also connected to that. So there are multiple layers upon layers of interconnection of folks who are trying to make this overall big shift. The Transition Local Streets is especially exciting because it is a way to actually talk about literally in your community, up and down your own street, to think about how you can build relationship with neighbors for all of these kind of works. There's a fantastic resource available thanks to Transition US to do exactly that. And I will circle through here, find that link to Transition Streets, and drop it in there. And I really want to acknowledge that the Humboldt transition group that existed before Cooperation Humboldt did, that they had a real moment of being really powerful and engaged. They did basically sort of fade. That happens from time to time. But I do want to lift up that there were individuals within the prior incarnation called Transition Humboldt that were some of the early thought leaders on what became an entire nationwide project for transition called Transition Streets. And I'll drop that into the chat now.
So we had Linda on the stack next, and then there's a question in the chat from Maggie that either you or I could answer, David, but let's let Linda go and then on to Maggie's question. Do we still have Linda? Linda, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question? Maybe she had to step away. Let's go on to Maggie's, and Linda, if you come back, let us. Maggie's asking whether we work with other groups in political organizing locally within Humboldt County. And the answer to that is yes, of course, within our, legal restrictions as a 501c3, we do. There are some things we're not allowed to do, but there's a lot we can still do. And one of the biggest things that we've done is an ongoing series of candidate forums where we've collaborated with like 12 to 15 other local progressive leaning organizations to host candidate forums. So we've done them in previous years for city council. We did one in January for the county supervisors. We were part of the group that just did one for Eureka City Council, last night Arcata City Council, and next Friday night some of the community services districts. And we're one of the signers on the Yes on Measure C for ranked choice voting in the voting guide that just came out. So David, do you want to say anything about rolling justice? That's kind of applicable there.
It is. And first I want to say thank you, Maggie, for asking that question. I'm not surprised at all that you did. So I just lift you up and thank you for it, because folks, like at the end of the day, what we have to do is engage electoral politics seriously without becoming electoral fetishists, right? Like we're not going to allow ourselves to get scooped into thinking that elected politicians are going to save us, but we also are not going to ignore electoral politics. So as Tamara said, we very specifically do the things that we can do. We cannot electioneer for candidates. So what for or against. So what I'm not allowed to do as Cooperation Humboldt is to talk about how horrific Donald Trump is as a candidate and the plans that he has to basically destroy the planet. I'm not allowed to actually use our resources, to do that. So I would never do that. But what we can do are ask candidates questions. So yes, the candidate forums. We're also developing a candidate questionnaire that will include worker-owned co-ops and public banking and participatory budgeting and community land trust and local democratically controlled energy production and distribution models. Again, what we're doing is within the limits of the law, pushing as hard as we can, as much as we can. Lastly, the rolling justice is once a month, we gather together and do caravans in the car that include drop-offs at 4 or 5 of the Little Free Pantries. So they're food drives, and Centro del Pueblo, the Eureka NAACP, Black Humboldt, North Coast People's Alliance, Cooperation Humboldt, and the Central Labor Council have been bottom lining those. And you will be pleased to know, I hope, that in October, we're moving it from October 1st to October 5th, because that's the first day that you can turn in your ballots. So although we're not electioneering on behalf of any candidate, we're literally calling that Rolling Justice our election special edition of Rolling Justice. We're going to go through the city of Eureka, honking horns, saying rent relief, mortgage relief, we're not going back, blah, blah, blah. We're going to drop off canned foods and non-perishable foods at Little Free Pantries and culminate at a teach-in either at or near the elections office so that we can encourage people to drop off their ballots. So I hope you can see that really what we're doing there, Maggie, is pushing the absolute limits of what we're allowed to do in electoral politics without coming into or crossing the line. Last thing I'll say is, we believe at Cooperation Humboldt, if it's the right thing to do, we have every right to do it. We also know that our current legal system protects property rights, not human rights, and that our current legal system can't even conceive yet of the rights of Mother Earth or the idea of the responsibilities that we have for each other. So what we're trying to do is shift all of that. But one thing, like I've been to jail for justice, I've been involved in nonviolent civil disobedience, but I'm never going to let the state get me on a gotcha game. So we are being very clear about when and how we do what we do.
So these are great questions, and we have time for more if you have them, and also really welcome any feedback on the meeting if you have any thoughts about whether it was useful or if you have ideas for improvement in the future.
Can I jump in?
Of course.
This is Maggie. I'm sorry, I have to leave, and would like to pursue a discussion about political organizing, and completely aligned with what you've already expressed you can and can't do. There's a lack of knowledge and therefore political will on issues related to how sustainable materials management in Humboldt County and zero waste. And we get a lot of calls from people who are running more and more, and that's great because then we can prepare them but when they are elected. But there's some key issues that I think you may be aware of, and it would be great if we were on the list to toss in questions for the panel that you organize for elected leaders.
Maggie, I dropped for everyone to see. I dropped my personal email. Hit me up. Let's have that conversation. I completely agree with you. Would love to see Zero Waste Humboldt into that larger mix, and also happy to work with you so that both Cooperation Humboldt and all the rest can frankly get better at it.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks. Sorry, I have to leave.
Thanks for
coming.
Thank
you, Maggie. Thanks for all you've done in this community.
Maggie, before you go, check out Lunch Out of Landfills. Lunch Out of Landfills. It's a Rotary project that educates kids and involves a wide network of community collaboration to raise awareness of food waste.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any final questions before we sign off? All right. I think we're done. Are we done? Wait. David, do you want to?
Thanks so much, you guys. We'll be in touch.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it too.
So for folks who are interested and not signed off, why don't we do just like we did the brief checkout? If you're here or check in, I would love to just hear from you. Check out how you're feeling, anything that worked or didn't work, just as a go round. And feel free to pass, but I'm just looking at the list, and I'll call on Andrew, Pat, and Linda. Andrew?
I really appreciated the meeting. It sounds like you guys have got a good system going. I was impressed by your number of active people. I think your model for bringing people into a leadership role and action-oriented role is great, and I'm excited about helping to expand those collaborative webs on this food security idea. I think the resources that that Rotary has at our disposal and the SRAG model nationally and internationally could really tie in with the overall goals of sustainability and community action. And I'm great to know more about your operation. So thank you.
Pat, Linda, then Maggie.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously I knew quite a lot of this already, and our organizations have overlapped before and continue to overlap in other food related issues, but it's always good to see. I'm one of my big things is getting out of silos and getting people to talk to each other and not have their own separate organizations all doing almost the same thing. So I really welcome when people come together to do stuff. I do quite a lot with the Food Policy Council as well. We're heavily involved in moving forward on a food aggregation and distribution system, which will help everyone. I hope we can all continue to work together to make resiliency happen, at least from the food perspective.
Linda, Alex, then Kate. Oh, Linda has stepped away, so Alex, then Kate.
Yeah, I thought your presentation was a really good summary. I'm excited to share it with some friends who couldn't make it at this time, but I know a lot of other folks who are interested in this kind of work. I also wanted to really note that I appreciate how good you guys are at meetings. I've attended several Co-op Humboldt affiliated meetings and Zoom presentations, and yeah, y'all know how to keep it on schedule, keep it on time, keep it straight to the point. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Kate.
Just, you guys always just so inspire me, and I really look forward to becoming more involved as soon as I finish up the study group. Really interested in education, as you might imagine. The food part, Tamara, I'd love to be involved more in particularly the guide, but I was just looking at the calendar and I cannot make the October meeting because it's part of the study group. So I'll just try and stay connected via Slack and other information.
I have a feeling that the work meetings for working on the guide are going to be, pulled out separately from the monthly meeting, and I think they're going to be every 2 weeks. So I've got you on that list, and I'll let you know.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm also excited, really enjoy working with Tobin on the cooperative worker-owned cooperatives.
Yeah.
Thanks again for all that you do and how the inspiration that you provide to us all.
Oh, well, we're all in it together, and thank you all for the incredibly kind words, the positive feedback. Let's keep on keeping on. Bye, y'all.